potential that you get rejected work instead of having cocktail
lavish ones. You know, some of the solutions
considered to be the or, even though you set up a neighborhood killed so easily.
That's very important.
So, you owe the IRS and you're in panic. Well, not to worry, we don't have debtors' prisons unless you've been intentionally shorting Uncle Sam. That's called tax evasion. Outside of that, when the IRS comes calling, you do have options. And here to put your mind at ease is tax attorney E. Martin Davidoff. Thanks for coming on and joining us. I know that's always a problem that makes people sweat when they start doing their taxes.
Yes, it is, and great to be here, Brian.
Thank you for coming on. Let's talk about what happens when you do owe the IRS. We'll get past the point when you filed and you get a notice or a letter or you couldn't pay the whole thing. What options do you have?
Well, first of all, open the letter and see what they're asking for. Sometimes it's, asking for $10 of interest. But your options are that you can get into an installment agreement, you can pay monthly, and you have to keep current first. Make sure that you're not going to get behind for another year. And you can do an offer and compromise. You can get into a streamlined installment agreement. You can pay the whole thing off. You can borrow money. You can do an offer and compromise. If you really owe a lot of money and you really don't have a lot of money, you can do an offer and compromise.
And what does that mean, the offer and compromise?
Well, basically, you go to the IRS and say, look, I only have so much in assets and so much income, and I want to pay you less than what I owe. So if you owe $100,000, but you have basically no assets and a limited income, you might be able to pay the IRS pennies on the dollar and be done with your taxes. There are about 60,000 a year who actually get those accepted by the IRS.
I would imagine you have to have very serious qualifications for that.
Yes, it's very regimented and it's very predictable. So if you see a specialist, an enrolled agent, a CPA, or a tax attorney, they can tell you within 45 minutes whether or not you'll be able to qualify and go through your entire financial picture.
Now, the federal government's pretty good about setting up an installment plan. In other words, if you owe $10,000, you don't have to just write a check right there.
No, they will allow you to pay it over 72 months in equal monthly installments, and they won't file a federal tax lien so long as you owe less than $50,000.
Okay. Now, if it's more than $50,000, then?
If it's more than $50,000, you have to make financial disclosures to them. You file a Form 433F or a Form 433A. You can find these on irs.gov. But if you owe more than $50,000, they're going to evaluate your ability to pay. Now, sometimes they'll look at your ability to pay and say you can't pay, and they'll put you in what is called currently not collectible status. And for the time being, until you get back on your feet, they won't bother you for collection.
Mm-hmm. But there are options that the government will pursue. In other words, if you've got a good job, they're going to come and attach some of that money, correct?
Well, yes, but you can control that. You can control that by providing them the financial information, and then if they say, for example, if you say, I can only pay $200 a month, and they say, no, based on your financial information, we think you can pay $1,000, in effect, you've asked for an appeal. And you can appeal that to the Office of Appeals, and you can get somebody to take a really careful look at it, and usually you can negotiate in the Office of Appeals a resolution.
Now, is this something you need a tax attorney for or an expert, or can you do this yourself?
You can do, under $50,000, you can do it yourself. You can go right online. There's an online payment advisor. There's even something that will tell you whether or not you will qualify for offers and compromise. But if you're over $50,000, you should at least spend an hour with a tax specialist, a tax attorney, a CPA, or an enrolled agent who specializes in IRS representation.
There was one other thing I asked before the show. It was called a penalty abatement.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, basically, there are penalties for the late payment of taxes and for the late filing. And you can ask the IRS to eliminate the penalties and basically reduce your tax liability. And to do that, if this is a one-time thing, the IRS will automatically abate those penalties, eliminate those penalties if you've been compliant for the 3 prior years.
Wow, so the IRS is now really the ogre that we've pictured in our heads.
They're not really the ogre, but just like everything else in life, there are some ogres there and some that are really great people, and it's across the entire stream.
All right, fascinating stuff. Thanks for coming on and sharing with us, and well, I'm sure we'll do it again.
Great to be here.